because water from the aquifer is cheaper. They're really punishing our aquifer. They nearly set off the alarms in January, February 2008, low-level alarms. If you do that, then you're in danger of salt intrusion into the aquifer, which would really destroy it. But their big thing, and the big information they were fed to cut out the more storage capacity in Wainui, was crossing the Wellington Fault. We've seen in the paper this week how there's other faults as well, 49 others, I think someone said. There's a lot of other faults. There's some major faults. They've got all of their supply coming down the Moonshine Fault, which is part of the Oharia Fault. And they're putting all their eggs into that basket. I was saying to Brian earlier that in Alaska, in the Denali Fault, Denali earthquake in 2002, they had a gas pipeline crossing a fault, not running along it, but crossing it. And it moved 5 metres one way and 1 metre another way and remained intact. So to say that you can't cross a fault is nonsense. You can engineer to do it. So putting all their eggs in one basket on a faulty premise has been part of the multi-criteria analysis. I've heard it from Maria Archer that that's the reason. I've heard it from Murray Kennedy of Greater Wellington, that's the reason. That's the reason that's quoted in publications from Greater Wellington. So you can't, if you feed garbage into your system, you're going to get a faulty result out. So it's a great pity, but that's our system of water at present.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Frank, you might want to stay for a minute.
I've got a bit of a cold still.
Yes. Frank does want to go quite soon. He's not feeling the best. But does anyone have any questions for Frank or for Brian?
The basis of those reports, the research, are they available online, or can we get information about the different companies, how many private companies were involved in the survey, and how many?
For the multi-criteria analysis.
Sorry?
You mean for the multi-criteria analysis? Yeah. I got it from a friend who attended a presentation at Lower Hutt earlier this year, in February this year. I got a copy, but I don't. I haven't got. There's not many details that I've found yet, but we're trying. My friend and I are trying to get more details.
Because quite often they are biased. They tend to be business tends to be biased towards business.
Yes.
So therefore, the companies like Young Watson and Opus and when they're dealing with stuff, they get out information which they think their bosses should be served with.
Right, and I think with the consultants, consultants know what their clients, in this case Greater Wellington, want.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get the jobs back if you go too far away from those ideas, I think.
Warwick, I just wanted to...
Sorry.
Oh, I haven't really been involved in the sort of background of this, but from what you've been saying, mostly argy-bargy about he said and they said and we said, and no one really knows who's using what. We would be in a huge position of strength if we knew exactly how much water we were using as a resident. Mm-hmm. So if we had a water meter, I'd be able to say, hey, I used 10 megalitres, and they pulled 80 megalitres from the gross supply, 60 megalitres is going wasted. So at least I would be in a very strong position with those figures that you've been showing. Oh, he said this and they said that, and no one really knows.
They do have some indication. The capacity has some streets that are which are metered.
Right.
And the only information they only use is apart from leakage is to residences.
Right.
And that sort of backs up their 230 odd value.
Okay.
I'd also say where meters have been installed, it hasn't strengthened Google's position because it's been used for sort of put in a user-based charge. So in the cases where usage actually has gone down, the charges have gone up. So it hasn't, even though residential usage has been lower, it's actually it's meant there's less bargaining power for people because they have less direct control over their water.
Yeah, but if the price went up, surely we can go to people like Brian, who's our representative, and say, hey, you've got to do something about it because the council own the water.
It hasn't worked with electricity.
Brian,
It hasn't worked with power, so I really don't think it will work.
we don't want meters.
you've got this huge cost of putting meters. If it's going to be universal metering, you've got, what is it, $35 million on that.
Can I just ask, businesses, Brian said before that businesses get charged,
Yeah.
are they metered?
Yes.
Like, how's it worked out? Like, say for instance a dairy or a hairdressing salon, and I'm not talking like big businesses like abattoirs and things like that, but how do councils work out?
It's a set cost per litre it's done on. And look, oddly enough, I don't actually have that figure.
Oh, I just
Frank might have it.
I've got it at home, but
Yeah.
it's about 80, it's a fixed sum plus the 1.78.
Yeah. Basically, there's a bit of history around how all this develops, because quite a long time ago, we're talking about 14 years ago, there was a move on behalf of small businesses to do something about their rates, because they were becoming very, very costly. So it was the businesses were paying 7 times what the residents were in terms of their rates. And one of the solutions to deal with that problem was to separate out water, because then if they could actually charge the water as it was used and take it out of the general rate, then the businesses wouldn't be paying for us, you see.
Okay.
And so that was a first step. Now, rightly or wrongly, that's kind of what happened. And the next step was to try and find efficiencies in other places. And what happened was there was a group of officers at Wellington City Council who wanted to privatise the services of council, starting with city operations. And councillors, like myself, had a big fight, and we won the battle to stop the privatising of council's city operations. But kind of as a compromise, and it wasn't my idea, they allowed water to go out to the private sector. Now, 2 councillors at that time voted against it, only 2 councillors. And that was myself and Councillor Cook, Councillor Stephanie Cook. So there's a bit of history behind all this, and one of the other things is that while I was on the capacity board, look, they do have sufficient telemetry at Petone, where capacity is, to actually know basically where water's going in various sectors, because they do what they call sector metering. But the issue really is that while I served on that board, basically a lot of time, a lot of discussion went into how could the directors get their fees up? How could the chief executive get more pay? Now, in the 3 years that I served on it, I continuously voted against increases for directors and for the chief executive. But the interesting thing, something happened in 2007, and of course there was an election and a new council was formed, and immediately the new council was formed, I was removed from capacity and council appointed a new director. Guess what happened to the directors' fees? They went up by 50%. Now, look, the thing that Mr. Cook is actually responsible for helping me to get this into the newspapers, because at the time, you know, the newspaper, there's only one newspaper, it's the Don Post, and this little paper here is part of that same stable. Now, the Don Post gets $8,000 a week, possibly more now, from the council, because it does those big one-page drop-ins. Now, what do you think that does to them when they think about whether they should do a story that could be contentious, and they have a client who's buying off them? So anyway, what happened was that I acquired 2 years correspondence between Capacity and Wellington City Council, and I gave it to Frank, Mr. Cook, to have a look at. And he mentioned it to Jim Chip, who he actually knows personally. And next thing is we managed to actually get this story out into the media and into the public domain. But the interesting thing is, as I